All right, we're now joined by Mississippi State head coach John Cohen. Coach, if you would just open with an opening comment, and then we'll take questions.
We're just thrilled that we're hosting a really good NCAA regional here. I thought the committee did a really nice job. I think it's pretty fair. I think it's the first NCAA field in a long time that really didn't have any form, in my opinion, of geographic bias. I thought the group did a really good job. Having said that, I think our regional has the best RPI average of any group of 4 teams. At least that's what I saw on Twitter. So if it's on Twitter, it must be right, 100%. Just looking at these clubs, SEMO's a great club. Coach Beazer does an incredible job. They have arguably one of the best, if not the best, left-hander in the country. Led the nation in strikeouts. They hit home runs. They're hitting .310 as a club coming in. They're really good. At RPI, a 4 seed with an RPI at 45. I mean, that's not what the doctor ordered. They're pretty darn good, and I think they could beat anybody in the country. So right out of the gates, we have to play well in order to win in our first round. Fullerton is, to me, the most underrated baseball program in the entire country. When you look at their body of work and the history of their program, it's pretty remarkable what they've done. And I think, Coach Vanderhook and Coach Dietrich have just done an incredible job with that club. They might have arguably the best pitching staff in the country when you look at their numbers all the way around. And Louisiana Tech, just, the turnaround they've had and the people they've beaten this year and their offensive production. Of course, Jake Wells was here with us and, is doing a great job. Of course, Greg Goff, Delta State graduate. Those guys are really good coaches. So we're going to have a fun regional. I think our kids have had a great week of preparation. They're ready to compete. I think it was really important for them to practice in the heat and be ready, for a 1:30 start tomorrow. And I think they're sick of practicing. I think they're ready to play a baseball game.
All right, we'll take questions. If you could please wait till the mic gets to you, and then if you state your name and affiliation. Start down here, Robbie.
Robbie Falk, Starkville Daily. You talked about you knew the what to expect from the pitcher, but watching film, their hitting seems to be pretty good too. What have you seen from them offensively? I think they got 6 or 7 guys over 300.
What really sticks out to me is their on-base percentage and how many walks they have. I mean, they have a remarkable amount of walks, and that means they've been very well coached, and their kids do a great job with the strike zone, so you got to throw strikes against them. They do a really nice job with their short game. Just watching them play, when the situation demands, they can do a really good job with their bunting. They run situationally. They're a really solid team. They don't have one theme. I think they do several things well. So you got to control the running game. You got to be ready for the bunting part, and you have to throw strikes against this club.
Go down here to Ben.
Ben Waite, Commercial Dispatch. You talked about SEMO's ace before. What makes him so good?
I think his changeup is if you're ranking changeups in college baseball, it might be, the best. His splits indicate that left-handers have actually had more success against him. Not much, but they've had a little bit more success against him than right-handers, and that means that changeup is really good. You can throw the fastball in. You can back foot the slider into a right-hander. He can throw the changeup to a right-hander. He can throw fastball away or into a right-hander. He can go get you 88 to 92. At times maybe even a little bit better than that. He's a great competitor. He's a senior. He's a really good pitcher. I think, if you start listing the guys who are pitching in the first game of the NCAA tournament around the country, there's 64 teams. I mean, he's got to be in that group of top 10 guys, at least by his numbers, in terms of, if you're ranking that Friday starter. So he's really good, and I think there's a huge disadvantage to facing somebody like him. There's a huge advantage. The advantage is if you can get to somebody like him and you can beat somebody like him, it really bodes well for you as you move forward. But it's tough facing a guy of that caliber in the first round out of a supposed 4 seed. I'm saying supposed 4 seed like I'm saying bottom of the SEC. I'm not sure either one of those things actually exist. It's just something we say.
Go to the back with Andy.
Coach Andy Lee, WTVA. So much talk about baseball now, numbers, analytics, but you still manage human beings. As an experienced head coach, how do you know when a team's ready for a regional and when they might be a little apprehensive?
Well, I think you're right. I think our kids are loose. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the 13 group. They're really relaxed and loose. They have fun being around each other. They have fun practicing. Not every group in the country has fun when they're practicing, and this group does, and that's really important. But I think our kids are ready. I think they're excited about this. In fact, I know they're excited about it, and I think they're a competitive group. We've done all kinds of competitive things during the course of the week to where they competed with each other, they competed against each other. I think they're ready to roll back out there and play a baseball game.
Go to the front with Joel.
Joel Coleman, Starfield Daily. Have you made any decisions as far as who'll get the start tomorrow and pitching plans for the weekend?
Yeah, we're really close to making that decision. Just kind of waiting to see what direction SEMO's going to go first. And as soon as we hear something about who they're going to start, that could, I'm not saying it will, but it could alter where we are with that decision right now.
In the past, you haven't always been settled with starting pitching, but now you probably feel good about 4 guys after Zach was able to go out there before him. How does it feel to have options in a tournament setting, especially with not 3 but maybe 4 guys?
Well, certainly Zach Houston is, he's done what you need to have happen in the postseason. You need somebody to emerge, who might not have been playing at that level. He pitched at a very high level, and you're right, he gives us an extra option. Pilk didn't get a chance to pitch, get a start last week in the SEC tournament, and we think he's a great option for us, and certainly, Dakota and Austin are great options for us as well. We just have to do a great job of just seeing who is the best matchup for the best opponent that we're going to play at that given time.
Go front right, Ben.
You talked about Zach. What are some of the things he did to kind of go from that bullpen guy to being the starter and throwing 8 2/3?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. Wes Johnson just got with him, and he just shortened up on the backside. His arm swing, the path of his arm is much shorter than it was in the middle part of the season. I think it's something that he and Coach Johnson were really working on, and it elevated his command, it elevated his stuff, it elevated his breaking ball. There's when you make an adjustment like that, there are times where you make a jump and then, like 1 step forward, 2 steps back type of thing. I think he had a little bit of that in the middle of the year, but I think he's getting more and more consistent with the path of his arm, and I think they have found something together that's going to bode well for him in the rest of his career.
We'll go down front, Mike.
Hey, John, Mike Bonner from the Clarion Ledger. With so many, I guess, Jacob Robson and Miles Gentry, the only people who have been at a home regional, is there any way to prepare them for that experience, or is it just something that, because even with Super Bulldog weekend, it's a little bit different. I know Vanderhook was out here saying the same thing. You can't prepare for a Starkville regional unless you've experienced it. Is there anything you can say to your team?
Yeah, I just think, I think that's one of the great advantages of the privileges of competing in the SEC. Wes Johnson said this, and I know other people have said it as well, and I agree. When you play in the Southeastern Conference, it's like 10 consecutive super regionals. And then when you add Oregon into the mix for us, it's almost like 11. And then you add the UCLA trip for us. I mean, I think our kids have played when you played at LSU and you played at Florida and you played at Vanderbilt and you played here on Super Bulldog weekend and the Arkansas weekend, and you just start breaking it down. I mean, is it different during a regional? I'd say yeah. Is it dramatically different? I'd say no. Our fans are really good to us under most conditions. So, I think opening weekend when we had decent weather, we had pretty vocal, nice fans, and I think it really all that prepares you for these opportunities we're going to have this weekend.
Stay down in the front with Ben.
I know you're focused on SEMO, but what do you make of the way Louisiana Tech has swung the bats here as of late?
Yeah, they've been really good, and they play in an offensive environment. They make the most of it. They pressure you. They're high energy. They've pitched it better than most people give them credit for. They're very well coached. They're a good club, and the time of year you want to be playing well is this time of year, and they're playing really well. So, Do we play them? Do we not play them? I don't know. We're really worried, concerned about SEMO at this point in time. But if it comes down to it, we'll be prepared for those guys, and there'll be a tough challenge, as all the teams in this regional are.
Go to the front with Joel.
You talked about the fans and things. How tough a call was it for you to make the adjustments and things to play the 1:30 game and possibly some fans not be able to make it that could have otherwise?
To me, it really wasn't a tough call because I'm always thinking about, there's two things going on here. I'm thinking about our club and what's going to give us the best opportunity for us to be successful. That's always in the front of my mind. I think we have the best fans in the world. I love them all. I understand that the 1:30, some folks might not be able to make it, but it really works for us. So, those decisions are made at the administrative level, with the fans in mind. I'm really trying to balance what's best for our players and gives us the best opportunity to win. There's no guarantees with any of it. But the first thing I think about in these situations is rain. When you're in this area of the world, the chances of you getting a thunderstorm late in the afternoon and pushing things back, does it happen? Does it not happen? There's a pretty good chance that it may or may, that it might happen. So that would put us in a tough spot. It would put our fans in a tough spot as well. So I've done a lot of research in this area, a lot, probably too much. But I do think it's what's best for our program at this point in time.
We'll go to the back with Steve.
Steve Robertson with Jeans Page and Dogs Bite. On Monday, you find out you get 3 teams coming in that you had no clue you were going to play. What is that process like to prepare from a scouting standpoint from Monday to Friday?
Well, I can assure you it's a lot different than when I played in these regionals at Mississippi State because the amount of information that's available to you is extraordinary. The amount of video that's available to you is extraordinary. So you've heard the expression, ignorance is bliss. This is not a blissful situation for us because we're overwhelmed with information. Sometimes I think we get too much information. Our kids right now or on Monday could go to the Ohio Valley website and watch the Casey, the guy's probably going to pitch against us Friday. They can just sit down with their laptop in their apartment and watch him pitch. I couldn't even fathom that, playing at Mississippi State in 1989 or 1990. So I think there's a ton of information available to us. We've gotten a ton of scouting reports, just like I know the other 3 clubs have. And, you just go to work trying to make the best decisions you can against these really good opponents.
Go down, Ben.
You talked about the 1:30 start off practice midday every day this week. How do you think the kids have kind of handled that?
Yeah, I think they've been great with it. I think they understand why. Our kids have played games at midnight and they've played games in the middle of the day. I think all of them to a man would rather play in the middle of the day, especially if there are turnaround implications for the following day. So, I think our kids get it. I think we give them a ton of information. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. You might agree, you might disagree, but you're going to know why we're doing this. And I think they'll kind of get it. They do a great job of nodding their head going, okay, we get it.
Michael.
Rick Vanderhook was in here saying he still remembers some memories from the '88 regional, the left field lounge particularly. What, if anything, do you remember from that regional when they were here?
Well, I remember, our fans aren't going to believe me saying this, but it was a much smaller version of what our lounge is right now. I know nobody ever believes that when you say it, but our lounge has improved and improved and improved over time. I think it's more impressive now than it's ever been, especially with the student involvement out there. And quite frankly, I know nobody wants to hear this. I think it's going to get even better with the stuff that our administration is going to do for us. But I do remember '88. I do remember the quality of that club. I'm trying to remember the name of their catcher that they had. They had a big-time catcher. What's that? Yeah, Brent Main was a future big leaguer. I remember he was just a really impressive player. Larry Koschel was the head coach. They were a very, very good baseball team. And, of course, that's a 6-team field, so you're getting a little bit more of a flavor with extra teams. But They were a very good baseball team, and they played very, very well a long way from home. They had a very professional attitude, and they deserved to win that regional.